Hey guys, it's Chris. From strange bronze objects completely out of place to mysterious discs that may hold the secret to the universe, here are 10 incredible artifacts that science can't explain. Number 10. The Alaska Artifact. A team from the University of Colorado went to Alaska in order to dig up a site that was an Eskimo settlement from 1,000 years ago. There they found what could only be described as a broken piece of bronze belt buckle, though to be clear, that's not actually what it was. What was curious, though, was that the piece was at least a couple hundred years older than the house the archaeologists found it in. What's more, as they examined the belt buckle, they found that it was made in a mold, which is not something the ancient Eskimo people knew how to do. In fact, the team states that it's the only cast bronze ancient artifact ever found in Alaska. Dating the bronze through methods like carbon dating didn't help much, for though it said it was from around 600 AD, they're not sure if that was accurate. And regardless of its age, it's clear that it had to come from somewhere other than Alaska, but where? Their best guess is that someone made it in Asia, and then through travels and trading it ended up in the hands of the Eskimo people. But even if that's true, it can't be proven. Not to mention, they have no idea what the full item was. It's impossible to tell via the broken pieces that they found, and the rest of it was never discovered at the site. Number 9. Ancient Computer. So when I say ancient computer, I'm not referring to the Apple II or some of the first computers ever made. I'm actually referring to a computer that apparently dates back to the 200 BCE near Greece. Now before you say that's impossible, know that this isn't your typical kind of computer. In the 1990s, a shipwreck was found near the Greek island of Antikythera, which weirdly was also the name of the ship found. In the wreckage, they found an old analog computer, which meant that they used the device to determine things that were going to happen in the world, without the need for electrical parts or databases of memory to calculate things. How they were able to come up with this, though, is a bit of a mystery. Specifically, this type of computer was used to trace the positions of stars, as well as determine the next solar or lunar eclipse. Regardless, the next type of computer like this wasn't made again until the 14th century. This is a really interesting piece of history, and it goes to show that though true computers were still 1,000+ years away, the concept of one was already on the minds of man. The computer itself is currently in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens. Number 8. Baghdad batteries. The modern battery is one of the most important technological breakthroughs of modern times, but in the ancient days, they may have had their own kind of battery. This is not speculation though, as a site in what was Mesopotamia and now Iraq found a special jar that was believed to be from an ancient form of battery. The jars were of terracotta, but the insides contain a copper rod and a spike as well as asphalt cork on top. But before it was sealed, the battery was said to be filled with an acidic liquid. Most believe it was either lemon or grape juice. The result was something that could indeed produce an electric charge. Many have gone back and forth as to what the use of such a battery was for back in 250 BC to 250 AD when it was believed they were made. And it got so divisive that it actually ended up on the show Mythbusters. They tested whether it could be used for electroplating and found that it could indeed work. Then there was acupuncture, via the use of electric jolts to ease pain like in some modern practices, and that too did work to an extent. And then, given the times, they tested whether it would work as a religious experience. All three were found to be plausible, but the catch was that a singular battery didn't have enough juice to really do anything. But put enough of them together and you did get results. Whether the Mythbusters or other scientists are right in their beliefs about the batteries is unclear, but one thing is very clear: these batteries were made for something. And now for number 7, but first, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and click that notification bell while you're at it. Number 7. Rocks from Gettysburg. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania is home to not only one of the most important battles in American history, but it's also home to cursed objects. Where the battle was held in Gettysburg is now a national park, and because of that, people go there all the time. But to truly help remember the moment, people take rocks from the field, which may seem harmless as rocks are public property in most cases. But the catch is that when they do, things apparently go very wrong for them. Multiple cases have been reported of people taking the rocks harmlessly, only for them to suffer consequences in their lives. One man even lost his family and then later on went to jail. So why are the rocks cursed? No one knows. But if these stories aren't enough to convince you, there's another thing that might grab your attention. Because if you're caught taking a rock from the battlefield, you'll be charged a $100 fine. Number 6. Las Bolas. Scattered throughout the Costa Rican jungle are massive stone spheres known to the locals as Las Bolas. But these are more than just stone spheres. These are stone spheres that were carved and shaped by hand. More than that, the stones are variant in their size. Some of them were only a few inches wide, while others were over 6 feet in length, and those ones could weigh 15 tons. There's been a lot of studying done on these stones, mainly in terms of trying to find their true origin, though there is no definitive way of knowing who made these, as they're obviously not around anymore to take credit for their work. Many feel they were carved around 1000 AD, which is about 500 years before the Spanish conquistadors came and made their claim in the area. Some even believe it goes closer to 600 AD, which is long before the now native people came to the country. So the question is, why did they make them? Why were they scattered all over the country? How did they get these massive stones to such a near-perfect sphere shape? There are theories and guesses, but nothing concrete, though the main theory by scientists is that they were somehow used in astronomy. Number 5. Early earthquake detection device. In modern times, there are various instruments to help predict and measure the intensity of earthquakes, but these devices were hardly original, as one similar device was somehow made in 132 AD by Chinese astronomer Zhang Heng. Not much is known about the vessel itself, and the only visual of it is a replica that was made of the device. According to the stories, though, whatever made it work allowed it to show where the direction of an earthquake was. On the vessel there were dragons, each indicating a direction, and below them were toads with their mouths open. When an earthquake tremor reached the vessel, the dragon that was closest to the direction would actually spit its ball into the toad below it, thus showing where the earthquake was. The text that talked of the device also noted that it had the ability to detect earthquakes 400 miles away. But how any of this is possible, let alone how it was built to work with such efficiency in 132 AD, that's a mystery. But perhaps the biggest mystery of all is that while we know what the seismograph looked like on the outside, we have no clue as to what the insides were. And whatever was inside there was likely the reason the device worked at all. Still, it's impressive that those nearly 1,900 years ago, they were able to craft such a device with any degree of accuracy. Number 4. Hanging disc. I want you to take a look at this ancient artifact referred to as the Disco Colgante, or the hanging disc. What do you think it looks like? If you said it looks like a spiral galaxy, then you would be in the same line of thinking as many people. But here's the rub. This isn't a new thing that was made. It was made by the Mosh people of Peru, who have made quite a set of interesting disc-like objects over the years. The big mystery here is how they knew about spiral galaxies when you can't observe them from our point in space. What's more, the timing of the creation of them, between 200 and 850 AD, means that telescopes shouldn't have been available to them, or at the very least, not ones that could see galaxies. So what led them to making this object in this shape? Located in the Peruvian Museum in Lima, there are many discs like this that were made likely for funerals. But this one has cross-sections and is divided into sectors of rays that come out from the center. The space marked on one of the rays corresponds to the position of our solar system in the Milky Way. Now, is that a coincidence? I don't know, you tell me. Number 3. The burial of Tutankhamen. The tomb of King Tut is one of the most important finds in archaeological history, but upon studying his body, a curious condition was found on his bones. They were burnt. To be clear, this was not part of the Egyptian burial process, far from it in fact. The Egyptians had a very specific method of burying their royalty, and yet somehow King Tut's body appeared to have been burned while he was inside his own sarcophagus. The biggest theory as to how this could have happened is that the embalming process, which is meant to help preserve the body in various ways, may have been rushed. The fluids used in embalming can be flammable, so it's believed that for some reason the attendants rushed the process, and the oils mixed with the oxygen in the air to somehow create a fire, burning the body in the process. But why would a pharaoh have his death ritual rushed? What caused the botched job if that is indeed what happened? And what's more, if it wasn't rushed, if everything was indeed done properly before putting him in his tomb, how did he catch on fire? These are the questions that many are trying to figure out as they continue to study the legendary pharaoh. There's also the matter of his legendary curse, but that's been proven to be a man-made creation mixed with some bad luck. and yet it persists as a legend. Number 2. The Copper Scroll Treasure. The Dead Sea Scrolls are one of the most important finds of the last century. But what's forgotten is that there was another treasure found alongside them, a scroll inscribed in copper. This was a common practice of the times meant to ensure that the text didn't fade. This particular copper scroll was discovered in 1952 in Qumran, and after dating it, it was found to be 2,000 years old. The mystery lies in what the scroll describes, a treasure of some kind that the scroll itself is supposed to lead the reader to. But the scroll doesn't give the proper location, and what's more, it's very likely that whatever clues are within the scroll have long since been lost to the passage of time over these 2 millennia. But what is the treasure anyway? That's another mystery, but one that might be explained due to the times in which the scrolls were made. 2,000 years ago, the Roman Empire controlled the areas around Qumran with an iron fist. It's believed that the people of the area hid a great treasure so the Romans couldn't get to it, and made the scroll so if they were lost or killed, the ones who found it would be able to locate the treasure. Number 1. The Hope Diamond. When it comes to cursed objects, few are as famous as the legendary Hope Diamond. Specifically, this is a blue diamond, measured to be 45 carats, and is worth approximately $250 million. Yet if someone is asked to touch it, they promptly refuse, as just about everyone who comes into contact with the diamond either has great misfortune fall upon them or dies. This all started with the gem in its original setting in a temple in India. A Hindu priest stole the gem and was rewarded with an agonizing death. Eventually, the gem was found and made its way to Europe. There it was bought by a French merchant, who eventually sold it to King Louis XIV. This merchant was later mauled to death by dogs. Both King Louis and his wife Marie Antoinette were later beheaded, and the gem was stolen during that period. It later passed on from person to person, including a potential encounter with a British king whose family had to sell the diamond to pay off his debts. Eventually, it wound up in the hands of a man named Henry Thomas Hope, which is where the diamond got its name. Several owners after him followed, and a similar state of death and woe continued. There are many who just don't believe in the curse. Many of those have studied the history of it and feel that the details of these deaths and misfortunes don't add up or are exaggerated, or are a simple case of people blaming their woes on an object, which has happened many times in history. Some even blame journalists, who were the first to note the curse in the 1800s, which no doubt helped create the true legend of the Hope Diamond. Whatever you believe, the Hope Diamond is not cursing anyone anymore, as it was donated to the Smithsonian in 1958, where it remains to this day in a glass case. Thanks for watching. What did you think of these artifacts that scientists can't explain? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to World List, and I'll see you next time.